Good morning, everyone. It's Patricia Dancing Elk Walls with the Ascension Portal community, and I'm here with Cheyenne Autumn. Cheyenne is the founder of StarLit Haircare and Energy Alchemy and the creator of
Animatrichology.
Where Hair Becomes a Powerful Tool for Healing, Transformation, and Self-Expression. And we were having a conversation before we started recording, and she has got some amazing things to share with all of you. And I'm excited to hear what she shares. So welcome, Cheyenne.
Thank you
And
so much for having me.
we're excited to hear about this work that you're doing. So where do
Yes.
we begin?
Um, I guess we can begin at the beginning. Um, I'll give you a little bit of history of how I arrived to this, and then I'll explain more about what animatrichology actually is. So in 2018, I was licensed as a cosmetologist, run-of-the-mill, root touch-ups, highlights, that kind of thing. Um, it wasn't fulfilling work for me. I loved the creative side. I loved having an outlet for the creativity. Um, and then through the pandemic, as much of us did, I went through my own spiritual awakening and started to really research and understand how we have this intuitive notion of cutting our hair when things change in our lives, or when we're going through a transition, or when we're releasing trauma. All of those things we intuitively change our hair in some way, whether it's cutting it, like the big chop in African American communities. When they quit relaxers, they chop it all off and then they start fresh, and it's like a cathartic release for them. And so all of these things to say that I really started to research, and I'm very science minded as well. So I delved into all the science and learned about how hair is directly connected to your nervous system. It responds to neurochemicals, and it triggers the release of certain neurochemicals, which is fascinating to me. Um, and then there was a huge historical context with this as well. We are most familiar with Native American populations and beliefs around hair care, that hair cutting was a rite of passage through grief or release, or coming of age ceremonies. Braiding was a connection between mind, body, spirit, and all of these things we kind of sort of know. But what I didn't know is there are 85 tribes and peoples across the world, at least one on every continent, that had the belief that our hair was not only a physical, biological thing that comes out of our head, but connected to our spiritual power, our essence, a vessel of our energy, and the connection between ourselves and source. And so through all of this research and understanding how our hair is actually more of a somatic release, like when we go to a salon, we get pampered and we feel so much better afterwards. So I've compiled all of this into a field of study. And animatrichology is a study of the connection between our soul and our hair. So it pulls from hair biology, neurophysiology, psychospiritual wellness, energetic science, metaphysical science as well, to kind of build a framework for people to use their hair care as a method to transform your inner world, which is the most powerful thing. Because not only are we working on the inside, we're doing our shadow work, we're, taking care of ourselves, we're deconditioning from the society that we live in to take care of ourselves better, but we're anchoring it into a physical embodiment practice. So it is even more powerful than doing those things separate.
There's a pause.
Yes.
So, um, off camera, and so just so that you can expand on this, off camera, I shared about my own journey with locks.
Mhm.
And that after 7 years, the message was very clear that I needed to cut them off. I needed to, start fresh. And that was all not totally related to the marriage, but, there was a lot of energy intertwined in those locks. And the message was very clear it was time to let those locks go. And the year before, I listened to the message because I was getting it for a full year. The year before, I had so much trouble with them. My hair was getting thinner on top, so I took the top locks out. I cut them because I thought, well, they're too heavy. So I had 7 years of growth, and over the 7 years, I kept cutting them because I thought they were so heavy that they were putting too much tension on my scalp and making my hair go thin on the top. So I was not fighting, but I was not listening to my hair and to the significance that my hair plays. And so I finally cut them. So what do you have to share about that part?
Well, it's like I said earlier, it's very cathartic to cut. And the reason why it's cathartic to cut your hair is because hair is a physiological archive of our spiritual path, our emotions, the medicine we take, the food we eat. It's all stored in our hair. So when we maybe neglect it, or maybe we hang on to it for too long, or we've transitioned into the new chapter of our life, but we haven't done anything to physically embody that. So let's say you've moved past that chapter, that marriage, you've moved into your spiritual awareness, you've moved into this fuller version of yourself, but you're hanging on to the energy of the past. And that's why it was so clear for you to cut that, because you cannot embody fully the new version of yourself carrying all the past with you. So using cutting as a physical embodiment along with the transition that you've made is super, super powerful. Anything done with intention is more powerful, but when you do it with the intention of growth, then it's hugely impactful inside and out.
That's interesting because the community, the normies, the normies talk about trimming your hair. That trimming your hair is so important to make it grow. Well, I never got that because it grows from the root, not from the bottom, and so I'm like, how does that make your hair grow? Okay, cutting it from the bottom, how does that make your hair grow? But that makes perfect sense because letting go, right? Cutting the bottom is letting go so that new ideas, new creativity, health, everything improves when you do that, and your hair looks better, it looks healthier because that's dead, right? That's dead hair. And so you feel better. When you feel better, then things happen. And so that makes perfect sense. Okay, so you see a lot of people with very dull hair, hair that is dull and lifeless and actually looks like straw, right? What is your intuition? What is your knowledge and awareness about that?
So it could be a number of things, but the two most common, I would say, are the products that they're using. They're not using products that have ingredients that align with who they are as people. So if you are a holistically valued individual and you care about what goes in and on your body, you should be reading those ingredients. You should, if you can't pronounce it, you don't know where it came from, don't use it. It's very simple because we get kind of conditioned by our society to just take whatever options we're given and then expect those to be safe for us. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So there are a lot of ingredients in certain products that are very dangerous, not only for your hair long term, but your endocrine system. So that's your hormones and your overall health, your scalp health. So please read those ingredients. The other aspect, more the non-physical aspect, is that they are not living aligned within themselves. So usually when the hair is dull or flat, it's kind of like depression. Like inside, you feel the depression, you understand that there are things that are making you sad, or you're struggling with some issues, or maybe there's trauma there. Well, that is also reflecting in your hair. So when your hair is flat and dull, most of the time it's because inside you feel flat and dull. When you feel vibrant and full and happy and healthy, your hair reflects that. So it is a reflection of our inner mental well-being, I guess. And it doesn't like when we don't live aligned, for sure.
Yeah. I'm thinking of one particular example. Very, very high spiritual person, very beloved in the community, but experiencing a bad relationship, and long, beautiful hair. She had long, beautiful hair, but it literally looked like straw. It had no life to it, no life. And she lives a very natural life. And so I can't imagine that she was using a lot of chemicals.
Mhm.
You know, I would think that she would have been using more holistic products. So that probably wasn't it. But
Mhm.
yeah, her life was very stressed. She was very stressed at the time, and so that all makes perfect sense. That might have been what was going on with her. You know, the
Mhm.
stress. Her hair was literally dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she hasn't cut it yet. So
She does need to cut it.
yeah,
You cannot grow if you don't cut. And I know that's paradoxical and it's against what we might think is our intuition, but you cannot grow as an individual if you hang on to old patterns and behaviors and belief systems. And that's exactly indicative of your hair. It cannot grow if you're hanging on to old energies and old memories. So my recommendation would be to have it intentionally cut, because what is happening there is she was struggling. So she is holding on to those struggle memories in her hair. And without that somatic release and the intention of doing it and having an individual do it that is consciously aware and energetically aware and trauma informed, it's not going to have the same impact. So I would definitely recommend to, if she has a stylist, say what she wants to do intentionally and see if that stylist is up for that. Not all stylists are
yeah,
energetically aware. Um, but I'm always available too. If she wants to make that a ceremony, I can definitely help her release that trauma.
that's nice. And so, how does this expand out into other arenas of your life?
Oh goodness. Well, it changed how I care for my own hair. Um, it changed how I looked or perceived hair. Um, and that's kind of what I want to do now, is change the perception of what hair is, because our society and even cosmetology school and trichology, they very much, it's very reductionist. They separate it as a biological feature, and once it exits your scalp, it has no meaning. But scientific research has stated that your hair is actually sensitive to bioenergetic fields. It's sensitive to vibration. And when your hair is hit with an electromagnetic field or a vibration, it sends signals to your brain. It is an antenna. Like, this is all scientifically based.
Right.
So you can't just look at it like a dead piece of keratin on your head, because it is a sensory organ. Like scientifically, it's a sensory organ. So because it's sensitive to vibration and energy, then that can also be used. So in my personal work, I've added guided somatic meditation. Um, I've added Reiki. I've added journal work, mirror work, affirmations, divination, um, prayer. So what I do is I use the client's excuse me, their spiritual path. So whatever their spiritual path is, whether it's mainstream religion or paganism or just spirituality, I use all of that and kind of guide them to what they want to do. So anything that's related to spirituality, I can use it in my tool book. So now I'm trying to include, I really want to learn about craniosacral therapy, because I feel like that's also very good, and can be fit into this framework very easily. Um, and I also want to learn about like body meridians and biofield mapping and auric mapping. I think all of those things could fit nicely. So I'm not the type of person to stop learning. I'm always going to be learning. I'm always going to be building my tool belt to help clients, because when you help a client not just feel good or exteriorly look good, but when you help them attain something inside with their shadow work that they're already been doing, it's a different kind of connection. It's a different kind of fulfillment, because I'm not just making them look good to fit in with this society. I'm helping them make forward movement in their spiritual journey and their inner journey. And so for me, that's where it's at.
I know this is not off topic, but anyway, uh, my the sister that cuts my hair for me, she's
Mhm.
just amazing, and I've noticed. I mean, we all shift, we all grow and expand, and in that our what we call techniques change over
Mhm.
time. So when I cut the locks off, I had to go to her to like straighten out my hair. It needed some shape to it, and
Yes.
needed to be cut and honored, and she's very spiritual. But when she was washing my hair, I noticed she always gives you a head massage when she washes your hair, but I would notice she would hesitate in certain areas. So she was also doing energy work, right?
Mhm.
She was assisting in removal. I could feel her pulling out
Mhm.
specific energies that were in there. I didn't talk to her about it. She and I have some very deep conversations, but I didn't breach this one with her. But but yeah, if you're doing it with intention, there's so much more that you can give to that client than just cutting and styling their hair. There's so much more that you can do for them. Then there's the other side of it, that in my red community, you don't just let anybody touch your hair, and I don't just let anybody touch my hair, right? I'm very intentional and guarded over who works with my head, because that's, like you said, that's my crown, that's my antenna. And I don't want people inserting things there that shouldn't be there. And so do you have any advice for people over using their intuition to choose someone that they are aligned with, and that how do they know whether or not to trust somebody with their hair? Because there are some people out there, they may not be doing it intentionally, they may not be doing it consciously, but here's a good example that I used to use. um, emotional intentions, right? And so you go to the restaurant and you have this amazing meal laid out in front of you. It looks really beautiful. And then you eat it. And then you start to feel a little off, a little bad. If you dove down in there, you may discover that the animal was killed in a negative way, a very traumatic, trauma-based way, are processed in a very trauma-based way. Or you may find that the person who packed the meat was in a really bad mood, or was very emotional. Or and then there's the cook, there's the chef, there's the sous chef, right? And then there's the chef, and then there's the waiter, and you've got all of these different energies going into your food that finally comes to the table to you. And if you don't know how to clear that before you eat it, then you are ingesting all of those emotional, not intentions, because like I said, most of them are not conscious, but you are ingesting all of that, all of those emotions, all of those memories, and even DNA from other people, places, and things. Besides what's intentionally in the meal. And so, isn't it the same with your hair? If you have someone working on your hair and they're in a bad mood, then they are sharing that emotional energy with you and implanting it into these little tiny antennas that we have that's picking
Yes.
up everything. So, what does that prompt you to share with us?
Well, I have some tips.
Sure.
Because animatrichology is not a field yet, this is actually my first time introducing it. There will be continuing education courses. There will be layman's courses for those who are not hairstylists. And that way we can spread this idea that this reverence for hair instead of just a disregard. But currently, I'm the only animatrichologist. My suggestions for a client looking for a stylist would be ask questions, but loaded ones. So ask, do you know what energetic hygiene is? Not everybody does. If they do, that's a good sign. If they say, no, I've never heard of that, what is that? Red flag. Do not. The next thing I would say is make sure that the products they're using align with your values, because people made those products, just like you said, it goes through many hands. And unless they're energetically aware and know what energetic hygiene is, they're not going to have the capability of cleansing those products. So it's like fractals of how people touch your hair, right? The next thing I would suggest is be open about your spiritual path, the place you are in your journey, what you're struggling with, and your intentions for cutting. So if you want to release something and you want to cut it out, they need to know that and understand that that's your intention and support that intention with 100% of who they are. You need to make sure that your energy matches their energy. So sometimes we meet someone and it's like, oh, they're a really nice person and I love them and they're great, but their energy is a lot. Like every time I'm around them, I feel like I'm drained afterwards. Don't do it. Just understand that if you're near a person and that person drains your energy, that is not the person that needs to touch your hair. And I also want to stress that we are taught that once we go to a salon, we're already there. We already made the appointment. We're just going to go ahead and get it done. Don't allow our conditioning to set you up for salon trauma, because really that's what it is. It's trauma when you're going to a salon. If you go there and you speak to the person and you're like, I just don't really feel like this is it. Like, I'm not sure, but I'm already here, so I might as well. Don't fall into that trap. give yourself permission to say no. If you energetically feel like this is not the right situation, then listen to that intuition and just say no. It's okay to walk out. And I know a lot of people pleasers are like, but I already made the appointment. No, it's okay to say no, because this is not just about some dead keratin on your head. This is the antenna that you have that mediates your spiritual energy between the earth, source, and yourself. So take it seriously. And for stylists who maybe are interested in this kind of thing, but aren't sure how to go about it and want to support their clients in that way, be open-minded. Understand that if you are going to be in someone else's energy field, you need to have energetic hygiene. It is a tenet of my work to completely cleanse myself before and after every single session. It's important not only for the client to make sure that I don't leave energetic debris, but it's also important for me because I often give too much of myself. So I need to make sure that I'm protected and my energy stays, because otherwise I can't get through the service, because I do a lot of energy work and I am in their energy field and I'm pulling these things out. But I can't do that without clean energy. So I ground every time before. Feet in the dirt, not like I'm thinking about grounding, but no, like actual earthing and meditation and allowing myself to release all those emotions from my own trauma, because we all have trauma. Every hairstylist is going to have trauma, but it's important to keep yourself as a clean vessel. So you have to live what you say. If you want your clients to be energetically clean and supported and feel peace in their mind, then you have to be the same. So that would be my
So
advice.
what about, and they're prompting me to share this information with you or anybody really. So you have a business, you have a salon business. You can't go outside. It's all concrete. You can't go outside and earth. There is also the practice of washing your hands with salt, right? So, and then there's also the practice of adding a bit of salt to rinse your hair with, you know. So if I can add that, that's also things that someone can do to cleanse, um, adding salt.
Absolutely.
And there are essential oils, of course, but then you don't want the oils in the hair all the time. So yeah, salt.
Salt is great.
Yeah,
Smoke is also great.
yeah. When we went to Egypt this last time, we had the privilege of going to Siwa, which is which is an oasis in the middle of the desert. It's an actual town oasis, and in that place they have the salt flats, and they're world famous for their salt. That's what Siwa, you know, that's how people recognize um, the town. And so we had the privilege of going and bathing in the salt. They created like a little lake for people to come and bathe in, you know, for healing purposes. So we were able to go and do that, and we were also able to obtain some of the salt and brought some back with me. And the advice was, you know, for thinning hair, that you could rub the salt into your scalp and then wash it, but also use it as a rinse, you know, just a tiny bit of salt. Well, I mean, there's Celtic salt, there's Himalayan salt, there's, you know, Hawaiian salt, and there are all these other, and we have a salt lake here in Texas. Who would have thought, you know, but we have salt flats here in Texas. But just to add, I mean, isn't that something that people could also do, or they could keep a bowl of earth, you know, and immerse their hands, you know, there's always a way around it, isn't there?
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes I'll hold the potted plants stick my
Yeah.
fingers in the dirt if that's what I need to do. I actually personally use a saltwater spray for my waves because I have wavy hair. And that's like double-edged because it's a styling and it's a protection and cleansing. Rosemary is also very protective. Um, I use dry rosemary and I steep it like a tea, and then I use it as a spray bottle. And that's how I re-wet my hair and refresh my waves.
Uh-huh.
So there's a ton of ways. I smudge myself sometimes. I touch wood. Wood is a very grounding object. I have some petrified wood, so I'll hold that as well, which is like a container. So it'll pull all that energy out and then I can cleanse it later.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of ways. And I'm gonna have a class or a workshop on energetic hygiene, specifically for anybody who wants to learn about it, because it is such a fundamental part of my work. So that's coming up soon. But yes, there's so many ways to cleanse and ground yourself. It's just important to do that for both the client and the stylist every single time. And I think that's what causes burnout so much in stylist circles. They can only make it in the industry for so long, and then they're burnt out and they have to do something else. And I think if we put more importance on energetic hygiene, then we wouldn't have so much burnout. Because when I finish a service, I feel energized because I'm following my passion, I'm doing what I love, it's fulfilling work. That's what we should feel like when we're working. And I think, hustle culture and self neglect in favor of production and all of those things cause burnout, and it kind of zaps the passion out of your work. So honestly, whether you're a hairstylist or an individual or in some other field, I highly suggest using energetic hygiene to kind of keep your energy levels up.
Yeah. So also, like for hairstylists and also massage therapists, very often they get what they're diagnosed with, arthritic hands, right? It's not really arthritic hands, it's energy that they have not released,
Yes.
you know. So it just as a reminder to use the salt or earth or rosemary, whatever, to keep your portals, to keep your portals clear.
Yes. I absolutely believe that the people who work with their hands tend to absorb energy through their hands. And this goes all the way to people that work on the computer all day.
Yeah.
All they're doing, like insurance agents, when they're on the computer all day, they're dealing with people's stress and drama and like not feeling supported and all of those things. They're typing them out. They're manifesting it with their hands. And then they don't realize that their hands are holding that.
Yeah.
So it's super important for anyone that works with their hands. And I think I also talked about this on a body worker podcast as well. So anyone who works with their hands should try something, even one small intentional choice to wash your hands with salt, or even salt and vinegar. If you're really struggling, mix the salt and vinegar and then breathe it in. And if you cough, you have energetic ties to someone or something that's holding you back. So really, if you work with your hands, please take care of them, because our mind doesn't remember all of the things that we go through and we experience, but our body absolutely does.
Sorry, the landscapers are here. I don't know if you can hear that. Uh, can you hear that?
No, I can't.
Good, good. That's why I muted myself, because he was like going right by the window here. So talk to us about your class. When is it? Where is it? How do people register?
I just recently had a class for just spiritual hair care 101. And that was in the middle of summer. People were traveling, so a lot of people didn't get to see that. I will probably do an energetic hygiene at least before the holidays. I don't have a specific date yet. But I do feel like the energetic hygiene class needs to happen very soon before the holidays. It is a very contentious time of year. There's a lot of trauma, and you got to think about, it's not just your trauma or your family's trauma or generational trauma. No, it's the entire trauma around that day. All of the trauma that is associated with Thanksgiving happens on that day for all of us. That's
Yep.
why everybody is so upset. All of the trauma that happened for Christmas, that's also attached. So it's like, again, fractals of trauma. You don't know how much really you're experiencing. But there's fascinating new research on quantum entanglement. And when you as an individual receive trauma in the same place or from the same person, you're quantum entangled with that person or place. Even the place can hold the trauma for you. So
Right.
you have
Energetic
to,
imprints. Yeah.
yes, energetic imprints from not only you, but historical energetic imprints. So
Right.
the more you release that intentionally, the easier those days are. And energetic hygiene is super important for that time of year.
Yeah. And then there's also for a long time, the guidance for me was to guide people to disconnect from the collective consciousness, right? Because it's like, they described it as a cloud, and we're all connected in, and so we're all receiving that energetic response. They're using the word response, but and then at some point, uh, the guidance was have guide them to disconnect from the collective unconsciousness. And I thought, well, that's something very interesting, the unconsciousness, because that's we're doing all of these things on autopilot, on unconsciousness. So they were saying disconnect them from the collective unconsciousness. So for me, all of that, there's so much going on right now on the planet, not just the United States, but on the planet. There's so much going on that we are plugged into. And we're either plugged into energetically because we're empaths, or we're plugged into because of the media, and the community media, the Facebook television. And so it is. It's your class is important, and I just want to encourage you to not wait, because it's not about the holidays. We really need what you're offering like now. So,
Very true. Very true.
if you could just do some Zooms, even, that people could play later, record them and offer them, on demand. So please consider that, because what you're offering is very important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, animatrichology as a whole is important because of all those things you just said. Everything is going on in the world, and there's so much trauma to people's places, things. And animatrichology offers the ability to have a moment of presence and intention with your body, your mind, and your soul. So it kind of takes you out of the ether of like, oh, worrying about what's happening in the world and what am I going to do and how am I going to afford rent and how I'm going to do this, and oh, this lady at work was such a rude person to me, and all of these things are negative. But then you chose to take some time for yourself and disconnect from that and embody who you want to be, work on your inner world, all in one session. So that's why it's so important. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because in school, I was astounded that they didn't teach anything like this. They barely taught history. They didn't even teach me how to braid. And that's something
In your hair school,
they
they didn't teach you how to braid. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they taught us how to like regular braid, no Dutch braid, no French braid. just regular braiding. And so I took it upon myself to ask someone to teach me because it was important, because I knew that there was intention and meaning behind braids, not just for African American culture, but there's meaning in braids for Native American culture and
The
Celtic
Druids, the
culture.
Vikings. Yeah.
Yes, all of it.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And it's, as I've researched everything that's connected to hair, I've realized that hair is our universal language. Like it, we have light language, which is the energetic version. Hair is our physical language, and it's universal.
Right.
So it's important to uphold all of these cultures' traditions. It's important to understand the autonomy of the client. And it's important to understand how much of a benefit you could be as a stylist if you operated within this framework.
You know, that brings to mind Facebook television again. You know, there are these videos that stream on Facebook, and I honestly get a lot of education out of these videos, whether it's a real education or whether it's I don't want to go there kind of education.
Right.
But I've seen some of those videos that are cases of autism, you know, going autistic children who you know, on some spectrums don't want to be touched, right? And specifically their heads. And they were focusing on this one guy who only works with autistic people, not just children, but people, you know, and he's very, very intentional, very calming. And so he's able to cut and style their hair. They trust him.
Yeah.
Because he comes in with, you know, that compassion and that intention, the do no harm. And because they know, I mean, there's a whole conversation we could have about autistic children, but
Yes.
they are so advanced, you know, and they're so
Really are.
sensitive. And it's like, no, you're not touching my head. I know what you're carrying. I know what thoughts you've been having. I know, you know, what trauma you are wearing, what trauma suit you're wearing. And no, you're not going to touch my head, you know. So yeah, there's a whole education. Could fill volumes, you know, volumes of books with the information that you alone may have about that particular phenomenon. So thank you. Thank you for agreeing to come and share that with us. Are there any last tidbits that you want to share? Anything I missed?
Well, I would love to share that I am very grateful that I was able to be on this podcast, first of all. And to your last point about autism, I have been very blessed to work with 2 adult autistic boys, and I was able to cut their hair with no issues, no violence, and they're stage 3 autism, so that nonverbal and violent. But I worked with one of them for long enough to where now he can go to a salon. He can go to a barber and he can get a haircut without a problem. It is very much an energetic exchange with autistic people or people that have autism. Because they are so sensitive. They are the most sensitive antennas that exist on this world. So this fits right in with animatrichology because we know that they're sensitive, and yet we expect them to just sit while someone cuts their hair. That doesn't make any sense. So
even the vibration of the shave,
right,
you know,
yeah,
the
or
scissors,
the sound of the cutting,
yeah,
you know, the scissors going through the hair. That's a sensory thing.
right.
So that is something that I do in my work. I do offer sensory haircuts that are, if you need the light turned down, if you need quiet, I'll do shears instead. If you don't like the sound of the shears, I'll do clippers instead, and we can have touch with the vibration and understanding and touching it on the skin. And so that's definitely something I offer. As far as little tidbits, if you'd like to know more about what I do, I have an animatrichology white paper. It is very academic, but I highly encourage anyone, stylists, energy workers, individuals who feel like they've already had hair movement, like emotion shifts, like they've had a breakup and cut their hair, or when they turned 18, they wanted a drastic change. Those are all touching animatrichology. So you're already doing it intuitively. The next step is to do it intentionally.
Right.
So please read the white paper. If that's too academic for you, I do have a blog post. It's much more in layman's terms on my website, which is starlitstylist.com. And I have my blog and the animatrichology white paper on there. So the blog is great because it has everything you could think of. I have some on color, intentional color. I have some on shadow work. I have one that was really fun to write called Hair and Witchcraft. So I love that topic. It was so fun to write. It is very highly educational. So if you have any questions or if anybody is interested after seeing this, please check out that blog. There's so much
I'm
information.
actually gonna put a link on the YouTube.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get that from you after we close. But yeah, whatever it is that you want to share with people, we can put links on the YouTube description so people can find you and find that information.
Wonderful.
And other interviews that you might have done. We can fill it up with links, and so yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've done one other podcast. It was a body worker podcast, and then I've done a video interview with a magazine. So I would like to kind of keep everything together, and I'm very much in the educational phase of my work because it is so new. I mean, it's ancient, but it's new, you know. So my clients are coming in, but they're coming in slowly, and that's because I need to educate more. So the more I educate, the more I appear on these podcasts, the more people bless me with the opportunity to speak about this, the more people will understand how powerful of a tool hair can be for inner transformation.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to hearing about how this expands for you, what it becomes, you know, and I know that people are looking for it. People are searching is not a good word, but people have put their intentions out there to know more, because we're beginning to remember that there's more that we, you know, than what we've been told and programmed. There's more, and people are beginning to look for that. I don't, you know, the word woke is just become so distorted, so we don't want to use that word. But people are beginning to become more aware, and they're wanting to know more. And so thank you for offering that.
And I love that there's this resurgence of understanding ancient knowledge, because that's where all the answers lie. You know, everything that they knew and we forgot. This is why we're living in the situation we are now, because we forgot what they were saying. We forgot their lessons, and so that's what animatrichology is for hair, is remembering those lessons.
Good. Well, I'm going to stop recording, but don't hang up. Don't you hang up. So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing more about you, Cheyenne.
Thank you. I appreciate it.